Welcome to One Woman. I'm your host, Sharla Brown, and on today's show, I have with me Shelby Ch'ng. We share the stories and lives of incredible women in this world, and Shelby is definitely one of those women for sure. So welcome to the show, Shelby.
Thank you. You're making me blush already.
Well, you are a great person to interview for sure for this show. So let's start with you as a little girl, Shelby, because you're definitely a leader in our community. Mm-hmm. Were you always that type of a girl even growing up?
I'd say, yeah, I could probably say that. I was always the one behind any big ideas when we were kids, so.
Right, and you have told me before you were, have 4 brothers.
Yeah.
So is that tough growing up as the only girl with 4 brothers? Were you always fighting your way to be able to be seen, noticed, do things?
I want to say yes, but no, that wasn't my childhood. It was, I always organized the games and the activities we did, so they often looked to me to be their leader.
Wow.
And naturally, I just whipped my brothers.
Look at that. See, started right early on, taking that leadership role.
Got my leadership skills from bossing my brothers around.
Wonderful. And as a little girl, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up, or what were the ideas that you had when you were little?
Oh, goodness. Of course, a doctor to help people, a vet. One job I didn't want, though, was an astronaut. Or anything putting my face in the water.
Really?
Yeah, it just freaks me out.
That scared you.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I always wanted to change my career, and actually I have changed my career a number of times as an adult. So.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess I'm living my childhood dream.
Right, and you grew up here in Thunder Bay. Let's talk a little bit about what childhood looked like for you as a little girl.
Yeah, so I grew up in the East End, over the East End Bridge. It always seemed like we had a packed house. So whether we had friends staying with us, 4 brothers, both my parents, 3-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. It was a good childhood. It was by no stretch of the means like we didn't have a lot of stuff, and I think poverty looks different depending on what lens you use. But I can honestly say like it was a happy enough childhood, and not without its some struggles, but yeah.
Right.
Was there anything in specific you were looking for?
No, it's just, I know we talked about that before, and it's came up before in terms of growing up kind of working class poor,
yeah.
And just the fact that, as a little girl, maybe you don't have all the things and stuff, but you made the best always of what you have. And
I think my upbringing has taught me to be resourceful. Mm-hmm. Like there were a number of times where food security was an issue for us. Like we ate expired military rations for a bit. I remember my mom stressing about having to pay the bills and making ends meet and living paycheck to paycheck. And I never really understood that other families just didn't live like that. I thought every family lived like this. And then once you have the means later on, it really makes you appreciative of where you've come from and other families that struggle as well. Right,
and I'm sure now as your role as city councillor, it makes you even more so compassionate, more aware of the struggles that families do face here in the city as well.
Absolutely, like it's given me such a good appreciation for just the certain dynamics of every family. Like my family is certainly not the textbook family, and yeah, it's been an eye-opener, that's for sure, being on the other side and just understanding that not everybody's the same and you have to meet people where they're at.
Absolutely. So as you get older and you go through school and you decide what you're going to take as in terms of your education, you choose political science. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I've always had an interest in political science. I don't know if it's what it is about it that just it lights up inside me. So when I got to Lakehead University, I was accepted to the psychology program, and I was going to be a psychologist and do psychology things. But 2 weeks into it, I took an elective in political science, and I absolutely fell in love with just the thought process and analyzing politics. And it was a lot of political thought a lot of political thought classes I took, and it clicked. After though studying, I got an honors degree in political science. I didn't think I was going to do politics after that. I was just burnt out, didn't want to do politics. I got an administrative position at the medical school. Yeah, enough of politics.
Wow.
And then, yeah.
later.
It's interesting how life comes full circle.
Yeah, and also too, it's planting those seeds. You know, it might not necessarily be in that moment, but
For sure.
it goes to serve you sometime in your life, which it has. And you know, politics isn't always the first choice for girls or women. You know, like what was it that happened somewhere in your life? Like I think you start learning about politics in elementary school, maybe around, you know, grade 6.
Yeah.
Is that where the seed was planted, or where did that happen in life that all of a sudden you decide you're interested in politics?
It was Mrs. Boo's grade 5-6 class that I really got the taste of what politics was. So she explained the political spectrum, and we were following. It was John Cheng and Kim Campbell going for the federal election, and Kim Campbell was absolutely ruthless to Jean Chrétien. She made fun of him about how he spoke because he had the paralysis on the side of his face. And I was just blown away. Like, how could somebody be so public and so awful? But part of me also, like, she wasn't your stereotypical, you know, soccer mom being nice. I'm like, she's kind of mean and she's owning it. So it showed that women can be other things than being nice and meek. And
right.
So I thought that's interesting looking back at that. Like, why was I so like into following this? And then Jean Chrétien zinged back with, at least I speak out of one side of my face and not both sides. So I was like, what? This is gold.
Right.
But I was a kid and I'm looking around. I mean, one kid's eating glue and I'm like, oh, who's with me on this? Nah.
Right, right. So you were maybe a little different that way in terms of going to school and what you were interested in. And I know you've mentioned you were a little bit of the class clown, which, you know,
totally
you still definitely have that sense of humor.
Like I mentioned before, I wish I was better behaved from my teachers. Looking back, like I was a bit of a goofball. And
yeah, but there's nothing wrong with being a girl and being different and
standing
out,
that's
right?
True. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll take that.
There you go. So you go through and you graduate. Now you said you started working at the Northern Ontario School of Medicine. And so what was that in terms of just making that a choice as your career? And, you know, how long did you stick with it until things didn't start to seem
I was there for almost 7 years. So it was, I started when they were in, the inaugural class was just starting their second year, and that's when I came on board. I worked in the assessment and evaluation department, collating exams, running some of the day-to-day activities of that department, and pretty much taking care of the director. So after that, I got a promotion to the coordinator position. So it was a medical education coordinator position, and it was a great experience because we went from a non-unionized environment to becoming unionized, getting the very first collective agreement, which was kind of sets the pace for moving forward with other collective agreements. I was on strike for 3 months. I really built a skill set in that place that I think sometimes the union work doesn't get the attention it deserves, because it really does help you build a skill set and negotiation and how to follow policies and protocols and procedures. So I think that really helped me lay the groundwork for my life now. So just being organized, because coming from an admin background, taking minutes, understanding Robert's Rules of Order, does really help me prepare for my life as a city councillor.
Right. And there's a point where you've got this wonderful job. It's got pension, it's got benefits. You're Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you know, you're apparently...
better than that, at 4:30.
Okay, so living the dream. According to a lot of people, it's living the dream, but you decide you are going to leave and start your own business.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back with Shelby and talk more about her life as an entrepreneur. Welcome back to One Woman. I'm your host, Sharla Brown, and on today's show, we've been talking with Shelby Ch'ng all about her life since, you know, from being young and, you know, a leader
I'm
right
still
from
young.
the get-go.
I'm still young.
Yes, you are still young, absolutely. But from a little girl
Yeah.
all the way up to, you know, getting this wonderful job after finishing university. And that's a tough thing, I would think, is that decision to then leave a secure job to then enter the world of entrepreneurship. So what was happening in your mind as to, you know, that feeling that, you know, I'm not happy or this isn't what I want to do?
It's on paper, the job is great. The employees at the med school were absolutely awesome. I made some lasting friendships there. It just wasn't, when you know you're not doing what you're called to do, it makes it really difficult to find happiness. And I do feel like there's a call of the wild, or I don't know how else to describe it, but you feel like you need to be doing something else. And so after I put my husband through school, he's a civil engineer, I said, you know, I want some time to figure out what I'm going to do. And this idea of opening up the bridal boutique, we were getting married at that time, and understanding that some of the dynamics in the business world in Thunder Bay were changing. A lot of people are retiring, closing up their shop, which causes a lot of money from Thunder Bay to leave our city when people need to find whether it's wedding clothes or whatever, outside of our city. So I thought this is a really good opportunity and a gap that I could fill.
So is that where the spark was planted? Was literally you're going to find your own wedding dress, you're having some of your own frustrations just trying to find what you're looking for, or maybe the level of service, and is that where that entrepreneurship bug got planted, or was there something else that happened?
That's when that got planted. I used to play store when I was a kid, and I loved doing that. But I never thought there was money in it because growing up on the poverty line, it's about that security, and that's what success is, having that consistent meal on the table, and you know, making sure you can have nice things and you can get your house fixed if you need to. So that's what was really important in my early 20s. But then when you realize and you get those things and still not making you happy, then there's something else that needs to change, and that's where. I mean, of course, watching Say Yes to the Dress, I was obsessed with that show. I'm still kind of obsessed. And when you want to experience that, and it's just not there for you, it makes it's like, what? We're getting robbed.
Right.
And yeah.
Was it a scary decision to then leave that job, or was it something pretty easy for you?
Took me a year of going back and forth, working on my business plan, picking away at it. Okay, some days I'm going to do it. I got it down. Yep. And it's like, looking at my paycheck, checking my RSPs, I'm like, oh, I'm not so sure, but you did it.
Eventually, you took the leap of faith, and here you are. How many years later that you've been running your business?
6 years now. It'll be 6 years in October.
So let's talk about a little bit about life as an entrepreneur. So it's not a Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. You're juggling lots of different things.
No pension, no benefits.
Staff, other people to worry about, concern about. So, you know, let's talk about what it's been in terms of, you know, just having a business and the stresses in your life and how you manage those, and also, you know, still being a wife and still being an auntie and still doing the other things that you love. Has that been a challenge for you, or?
It has been. Part of I'd say my life journey is understanding where my extremes are. When I did have my desk job, I was extremely, like, everything was just quiet, and I can't do that. I can't do a cubicle. I can't do the Monday to Friday sit still in one place. On the flip side, owning your own business, I can easily get wrapped up in so many details and just be spinning all the time. So it's finding that balance between that life and my old life, where I can manage things. And I think that's been the biggest struggle, is just knowing when to peel back and knowing when to hit the play button. So.
Right. And I think when you start out, especially in your industry of working with brides, and you start this off as a dream business, you know, helping people find their perfect dress, or it's almost like that Cinderella picture in your mind, with girls spinning around in this beautiful, has it been that? Or is it been, you know, some parts where you're like, oh, I don't know if I should have started a business, or? Never
regretted starting the business. And I get that some people do feel that way, and it's perfectly okay. I've just never experienced that. There are times where I wondered how I'm going to pay the bills. Just because in those I'd say the first 3 to 4 years, It was when I became incorporated, paying the big tax bill because I needed to incorporate, and I should have probably done it a year sooner, completely emptying out all my savings and depleting my cash flow. That was, I cried for about a week because of that. I got through it though, just rebuilt, and I'm at the point now where I can almost draw like a consistent wage, which is really good and kind of lets me breathe a little bit. And I know the cycles, and I know the vendors, and most of the brides were seeing their sisters and their family members, so we're really just making connections. So I think we're at a really good spot right now, but it's not without the white knuckle terror that goes along with creating it.
Right, it takes time to get established, get your reputation, and also get the groove of your own business and getting those practices and things that work well for you, and looking at your overhead costs, and I'm sure all those things. And so what are the things that have really gotten you through those white knuckle challenges? You know, what are the things that, you know, is it a support system you have? Is there mentors in your life? Is there things that have gotten you through it? Because I think a lot of women, or anybody, you know, might throw in the towel somewhere along the way.
Right. I mean, crying it out helps. Just full on ugly cry. Yeah.
Had a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. Letting yourself experience that, and like really just because you're not happy doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid. And allowing yourself to have those moments of like, oh my God, what am I going to do? The biggest support in my life is my husband. I mean, my God, he barely sees me. I put out some food for him every now and then when I have time. But I don't know, we're fine. But he absolutely is so supportive. I mean, my family's been supportive. My youngest brother, my mom's been supportive. Even like not even just financially, but just knowing like when I incorporated and had to pay a heck of a lot of money for the incorporation and paying my taxes and just doing all that paperwork in a very short period of time, and my mom's like, oh, you're fine, you're gonna get through this. It's like, usually I'm like, but I'm not fine. It's comforting to know I have people that support me no matter what. And even though I felt like a failure for not foreseeing this, or maybe not understanding the implications of like not incorporating earlier. Not many people do, and it was that was probably a low point, but it was also something that I went through, and I'm so glad that I was able to make it out. And it wasn't like it was a lot of thought, a lot of processing, and But a year later, I bounced back, and I was fine. My employees are fine, like.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's learning to go through those lows and get through them, and knowing that, you know, they're not going to last forever. I always say, when you're going through hell, just keep going.
Yeah,
you know,
it doesn't last forever. That's the
right.
thing.
Yes.
Things, you go through these cycles, and when you hit something like that, you always have something, well, at least this bad time isn't as bad as that last bad time. And then it levels you out a bit more, and it helps.
Right, absolutely. Now, on top of everything else that you're doing, running a full-time business, all of a sudden you decide that you would like to run for city council and throw your hat in the political arena. So just because entrepreneurship and everything else isn't enough. Right. So we're going to be right back with Shelby and talk more about her political life. Welcome back to One Woman. If you are just tuning in, we've been talking today with Shelby Ch'ng all about her incredible life. And yes, she's still super young, but she's done so much in her life so far. And we talked about, you know, going to school and, you know, working for somebody else, having a business, you know, a full life, and then deciding all of a sudden that you would like to become a politician here in the city. So, you know, what was that? How did that come about, that all of a sudden you decided that you'd like to run for city council?
Oh, yeah. I remember a conversation I had with my friend, Sean Patterson. Just giving my friend a shout out. He actually helped me paint my shop. So while we were painting, we were just talking about, you know, life and like philosophy and ideas. And I was talking about, yeah, I got to find somebody on council to, how to clean up the street or get things fixed down because my business is in the South Core. And he's like, well, why don't you just run for council? And I think, no way, no way. So I'm like, I'll just find somebody to, be buddy with, and they could do all the work for me, of course. So I was looking at council, and I was like, there's nobody I really feel I could connect to. And I noticed that many people in my generation were just not connecting to their political people. And I was like, somebody should do something. And then when I was thinking somebody. So that's what got me started. And it was really no disrespect to anybody on council. The incumbent in Northwood, I actually really like him. Thought he made a number of great decisions. I thought I would just run, get my feet wet. I was told I was not going to win by at least a few politicians, and just to keep trying, because this is how you build your name in town. But then I was elected, so here I am, here we are.
And did you expect to win, or were you shocked yourself to win?
I was shocked. I was really prepared to not win. It was really that the first time I thought I would win was during, as soon as they opened the advance polls, and I knocked on one gentleman's door. He like, I voted for you already this morning.
Wow.
And I was like, you voted for me? I remember where he lives. I remember what he looks like. He probably doesn't even remember me, but
right.
Maybe he does. I hope he does. He voted for me.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's where I was like, maybe this could be a possibility. It was a lot of work, but I don't know, I'm friendly, and I like to hear stories from people. So going door to door, knocking, saying, hey, how long have you lived here? Tell me about yourself. It was really fun, and it was interesting. I got a number of interesting, good stories out of people.
And you really had a well thought out campaign. And I know I talked to you about this when you had even ran, was, it was really important to you to knock on every single one of those doors. So is that something that really you felt was a contributing factor to winning, was just really making those connections? And why was it important to you to make sure you talked to everybody in your ward?
We could always assume what the issues are, but unless we actually talk to people, we don't know. And I think other things come out that are not really talked about, like the communication methods that are being used. I live stream ward meetings. I got a resolution passed so that future council members can live stream town hall and ward meetings, and people can participate at home. So things like using the communication, I think, was something that people don't really say, hey, you need better communication tools, but when they say things like, I don't know what's going on, that to me is a flag, and how do I fix that?
Right, absolutely. And have you found any challenges being a woman in politics or a woman on council? Because I don't know, what is there, 10 councillors, 3 are women?
13,
3 are women. So
yeah.
Women are still very much underrepresented in politics.
Mm-hmm.
And have you had any challenges, or have you felt treated differently because you are a woman?
Absolutely, yeah. Administration has been absolutely fabulous. And I think having a really strong female leadership team in the upper management team has been extremely helpful just to my development as a person and my development as a councillor. It's really helped break down some barriers that I might have had otherwise. So our administration team is fabulous. Some of the issues I have, though, I've had conversations with even my fellow council members that don't quite sit right with me because of the language that's used. And the big thing is some of the constituents. It's really hard always being available and open to talk when the wording used is degrading, or if there's a decision that I've made that they disagree with, all of a sudden I'm a silly girl. These are just everyday things that people get used to, and it's like, well, don't be so sensitive about that. Well, there you go again. So it's really hard to manage that feeling. So that's just more the lighthearted stuff that isn't it's still there, but people have said some very derogatory things. But it's really helping me develop a thick skin and And
But any situations where you ever felt threatened
yeah,
as a woman?
yeah.
So, and how do you deal and handle with those, whether it's, derogatory comments or where you actually feel threatened and stuff like that? Because I think that's what holds a lot of women back in terms of taking various roles or choosing various careers and all that. What kind of advice do you give, or what are the tools and things that you've used to help get through that so that it doesn't get in your way of living the life you want to live?
I received one particular email that was threatening and absolutely awful. And one other female counselor received the same email, like it was directed towards me, directed towards her. I got the chief of police involved and the city manager. And just knowing that those two people, like JP Levesque was absolutely amazing with just like, it's okay, I'm gonna deal with this, don't worry about it, just do your job. And he, like Norm Gale, the city manager, he's very supportive. Like he was really upset that somebody sent that to us. So it was just nice being able to bring my issues to people that can actually do something about it. So I'm not always just suffering in silence because people use the C word on me or the B word or any other derogatory female word. Or just even having my judgment questioned all the time. Like there's nobody I can just go to that will help this situation. But when it gets to a certain level, I've been very fortunate to have good management team at City to really help me deal with some of this.
Right, absolutely, and having that zero tolerance and having that support system and knowing that you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
So absolutely. So if there's women who are watching today and they were thinking about whether it's starting their own business or running for politics or any of that kind of stuff, what kind of advice would you give women in terms of, going forward?
I'd probably say don't be too hard on yourself. It's easy just to always want to be perfect and say the best thing at the best time. Doesn't always happen. I mean, I've certainly made my mistakes. And when you're easier on yourself, you go easier on other people. So I'd say, don't be too hard. Don't beat yourself up. Do it a little bit, obviously, because you need to get better. But
yeah, you want to develop some personal and professional growth, but don't dwell on it so much that it holds you back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what does the future hold for Shelby Ch'ng? You've already done so much in your short time on this earth. What does the future hold for Shelby?
I think I'm just going to keep my hand on the wheel. I mean, my life up to now has been just one big change after another. I think I'm going to live in this moment for a while and just be the best counselor and best business owner I can be in Thunder Bay, and we'll let the future deal with itself.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you, Shelby, for being on the show today and sharing your incredible life with us. You're such an inspiration for women who are out there who are looking to maybe figure out what the next right step is, whether it's politics or a business or whatever it is in their life. So I appreciate you sharing with us today. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Be sure to watch next week with more on One Woman.